All right. Good morning, everybody, to the early birds. I hope you're all having a very good week. Thank you for joining us. This is the second customer community live that we've done this year, and this one in particular is going to be covering accounts production. We know that's a hot topic for this time of year in particular, so we are offering a best practice session for you. And Doug Schubrick here is going to be taking us through a demonstration of his top tips. You can ask questions at any point during the webinar. Just put it in the Q&A box, please. So Doug, I'm going to hand over to you. I don't know if you want to do a quick introduction and then you can kick off with your content.
Yeah, sure. Cheers, Steph. Good to see so many people join. My name's Doug. I've been with Waterclub for about 5 years now. Prior to that, I was an accountant in practice and also in industry myself. So just going to be running through accounts production and sort of best practice and hints and tips as well. So just bear with me. I'm just going to share my screen. That's great. So hopefully you can see my screen now. And so what this is a home screen for accounts production. And so the benefit of having this on your home screen just saves you a few clicks, and you can basically access your accounting period instantly just from clicking on the year-end button there, as opposed to going through your client record in this section here. So I'm just going to show you how you would go about getting this accounts production home screen on your home screen. Now what you're going to need to do is just click on this customize button in the top left corner. Now it does require a certain level of permissions or rights within your security group. So if you're unable to access that, just contact your manager and either ask them to do it for you or just allow you to have those permissions. So this opens up the toolbox, and so you can see we've got a whole range of different products in this area. And so it's worthwhile checking out the different widgets, if you like, or windows relating to each different product. You can find a lot of information about that on our user docs area, so definitely worth checking out. We're going to focus on the accounts production side of things today. And so first of all, I'm just going to close down what I've currently got, which is what we're aiming to get on my home screen. So I'm just going to click the X up here. So once you open up the toolbox, it then allows you to click the X in the top right corner as well. So I'm just going to select that. And what I'm going to do is the window that we want is the job summary. So I'm just going to drag that out from the toolbox here. I'm just going to extend it, make it wider both sides, and also just push it to the top of my screen. So then we can see like a full list of the different clients. Now at the moment it's filtered by office, so I'm just going to right click and just remove that filter from the list essentially. So then it's got my full list of clients. And I'm just going to select X. So that's now saved as being on my screen. But what I'm also going to do is just drag this period end over to the name section, just so that it's ease of access, and it's right next to my client file as well. So they're both just there, easily accessible. So I'm going to right click, and I'm also going to add a filter in so that I can essentially search for different entities in the list. And so what I'm going to select is the field to be name, and then also contains. So then I can just search for keywords in that area for the different entities that I want to access. Now I'm just going to click customize again, just to save that. So when you open it and then close it again, it will save those settings for you. And that's how you would go about essentially getting that onto your homepage. So we're just going to quickly access, it's called WK, and I've set up a webinar entity here, and we're just going to click straight into the accounting period just from clicking on this area here. That then opens up our accounts production home screen, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. Now I'm just going to year end, so we've got a fresh year end to look at. I'm going to zero that trial balance, and I'm just going to select finish. Now, once that's year ended, we are going to talk about how to import or your various options when it comes to importing your trial balance. Now you could use an advisor journal section, and you could essentially type in the trial balance manually. That does tend to be prone to errors and also quite time consuming. So, we would advise either using the From Software option. So within this section, you've got the From Software. Now we have got links from Xero and QuickBooks. So just as an example, I'll just show you, I'll just open up the Xero login window. So what would happen is you would just log into Xero and select the company that you're going to be importing and the accounting period, and then that would then import or that trial balance from that company. Now, all of this sort of standard codes from Xero would be automatically mapped, and so you wouldn't then need to do a CSV file or select the mapping file in this area here. So apart from Xero and QuickBooks, what you would have to do is select a CSV file. So prior to actually importing that CSV file, we're just going to do a bit of prep on that CSV file. So I'm just going to come out of CCH Central for a second and just open up this CSV file. So you can see here, it's a standard 3-column CSV file. You have got, this is one I've actually already done. So just bear with it. So I'm just going to show you what actually happened is essentially that what within column A here is your external bookkeeping code. And so it usually just has the description in here, but I currently have the account and the description. So what I've done there is essentially I've done it formally to amalgamate the two columns A and B. And so if I then just show you how I went about doing that, so I'm just going to insert another column. And so to amalgamate the two columns, what I've done is just select formulae and insert function. Now it's called concatenate, and so you can just search for that if you haven't got that. So just from searching in the function area here, select go and then select concatenate. Now this is where you would then select those columns. So we're just going to amalgamate column A as text 1, then in text 2 I just want a space, and then in text 3 I want the C. So you can see now it's kind of doubling up on the narrative of the code, because I've already done it on this particular one by mistake. But you get the idea that essentially that is how you would go about concatenating those two or amalgamating those two cells to then be ready for import. So at that point, you would then, delete, essentially copy the cells as values, and then you can then use this, and then you would have your external codes available to you in column B, alongside your description, which is quite useful when referencing to your accounts. So that file is now ready to import. So we're just going to select file and then save that, and just close out of that file. So to import that CSV file, what we're going to do is just come into the import section, select the CSV file from here. I'm just going to select current year trial balance as well. So that's important. Now, if you were to be using a bookkeeping software, so for example, ClearBooks or Free Agent or anything like that, we have got standard mapping files for all of these different bookkeeping softwares. For the more common ones as well, we've got the Sage 50 accounts and Relate and that sort of thing. So what you could do is just select those, and that would then essentially convert your codes from this column, your external bookkeeping codes, into the CCH codes in this column here. Now you can see with that import, we've also got the external code it's kind of stored within the description area. Now, any unmapped codes, you can just click on this button here, and then you can then just map at the time of import as well. So that's now ready to import that file. So I'm just going to select import. Brilliant. So that's now imported successfully. So that's brought us through into our trial balance area, and you can come into this section. You can view all of the different nominal codes with balances within them. So you can essentially expand each code and just have a look within that if you were to want to. And you can also come down and look at the transactional ID on that particular entry. So that then takes you through into your view transactions area. And if you were to have posted to an incorrect account, if you have the right permissions to do so, you can just come in here and then essentially repost it to the, or essentially reselect it to the correct account from clicking on the drop-down box. Now, next up, you probably want to do some journals. And so the best practice around journals is to essentially create advisor journals for everything except the prior year adjustments. So the advisor journal section, you would come into this area and you can fill out your batch reference, your source reference, and your description, and the type of journal you'd be doing. I'm just going to post a £5,000 journal to sales, just as an example. So you can search for the code, and you can also search for the actual description of the account as well. So the bank current account as an example. And it will show you the balance that you posted to as well. So once that balances, the post button becomes then live, and you can then select post. So that journal's now been posted. So I'm then able to view that advisor journal in my view advisor journal section here in the posted area. So you can see that there, and you can edit or unpost those journals if needed. I can also view it in my view transactions area, just right at the bottom here. So that also appears there. You can also run a report on the different types of journals within the advisor journal section as well, which can be quite useful. So we're just going to select that adjusting journals report. Great. So that's your journal, and this report can also be exported to Excel if necessary as well. Brilliant. So just working down this kind of list. So next up is pretty much your disclosure side of things. So we're going to be looking at the stat database area. And so just within the general section here, so we've got this area called the size and audit section. And so you can see it kind of totals up all of the different turnover amounts and balance sheet total and the number of employees for each accounting period. Now, it does indicate which or what size accounts you think the software thinks you should be producing based on the last 3 years. So it takes an average of those last three years and just then decides whether or not an audit report is required and what size of the accounts you should be producing. Now, from that point, you can then come and select the size of the entity in your client preferences area. And these are all trigger questions, which then later determine what follows later down the chain. And just to give you an indication as to what I mean by that, you've got your exempt from audit area here. And at the moment, we have got an audit report selected. So you can see that auditor's report there. But if I then were to select fully exempt just for an accountant's report, I can just click on that. That will then change into an accountant's report. Now, another area that might be of use and probably best practice is when it comes to changing the description of just an example within the profit and loss area. So if you were to come into the financial statements, if we just look at the profit and loss as it currently stands, so it's currently showing as turnover and admin expenses or administrative expenses. So if I wanted to change those, but without localizing that format, so without double clicking within that format, I can come into the stat database area here. And so I can then go into my profit and loss account area, and within the presentation section, now it's kind of hidden within this exceptional items area. So if you click on that, if we wanted to change turnover to revenue, just as an example, I can do so. If I wanted to change the administrative expenses to just admin expenses, just as an example, I can do so. So once I've done that, I can then select within the financial statements area, and then we can look within the profit and loss account, and you can see those have changed without localizing the page. Another thing you can do is actually detach this stat database area, and you can put it into a new tab. And what that allows you to do is just view the stat database as a separate tab on its own. So it saves you going between the stat database and the financial statements area. So that will save you a bit of time. And so once you do make a change within the stat database area and you want it to reflect, so if, just as an example, again, if I come into that presentation option area, if I were to change that back to its original, so if I just delete out that, then I come back into the accounts production within financial statements area, that will then essentially refresh. And if you do make any changes and you're already on the financial statements, you just select this refresh button. That will then reflect on the accounts. Cool. So that's just a few hints and tips around the stat database area. Just another thing as well. So you can search. So if you were to want to find certain notes within the stat database, really good function in the top left corner is to just search for certain things. So for just an example, just a going concern, we can then flick through there and find the various notes relating to a going concern note, essentially. So you've always got that search box to look through the stat database for various notes that you might need to. Great. So on the financial statements area here as well. So we're just going to touch on a couple of things. So the exception report. So what this is, it's just a schedule that starts at the top of every single entity within CCH, or most of the single entities anyway. And so what this does, it just summarizes, and it's just a checklist basically for you to just run your eye over and just ensure that you have made those right selections in the stat database area. So you can see here it will summarize, what size company you've selected, whether or not you are claiming those exemptions, whether or not you've got an audit report, so on and so on. But it will also let you know of any missing dates, any missing signatories, any analysis that needs to be done within the stat database, any missing corporation tax rates and that sort of thing as well. Now, you can also, if you click on a reference, certain areas, so for example, dates, and certain things like depreciation rates and corporation tax rates, you can just enter directly on this exception report. So for example, this strategic report, if I just click on the face of that, and I've just clicked on that reference there, so that will then bring up this date area here, and I can then just select the date at which I want to enter for that particular strategic report date being signed. Next time it's generated, that will then remove that from the exception report. So, quite a useful tool if you are just running your eye over it and, you've missed a couple of dates, you can just quickly enter into those references and, then just enter the dates directly onto the face of the exception report. Similar in the sense that, you could go into a director's report, and if you wanted to change the introduction, you can just click on the face of the preview and just type in your own information into that section as well. Likewise, if you did want to break down on any of the figures in the accounts, you can just click on the face of the preview, and it will then show you your nominal codes involved and how that total has been calculated in the bottom right corner. So just a few hints and tips around that side of things. You can also, just to mention, within the financial statements area, you can also add formats from other clients. So if you were to have created a format that you particularly like the layout of, or if you feel like it would be relevant for another entity, you could add that format from another client quite easily just from clicking on this button up here. Cool. So once you have completed your accounts, there's also the option to finalize them. So you've got this area in the home section. So just coming back onto the home screen here. Excuse me. So you would just select finalize accounts up here. That would then essentially lock down those accounts and prevent any further amendments being made. If it does depend on your setup with regards to your security groups and what certain colleagues are allowed to do. But if you were to have set it up correctly, you can then kind of stop users from selecting the undo finalized accounts option. Cool. So once you've then finished your accounts and you're ready to kind of send those out to send those to corporation tax or to personal tax, I'm just going to just touch on the various the sort of tax sending information. So I'm just going to come in and select myself from my client list. And I'm just going to go into Accounts Production, into my incorporated, and I won't upgrade for now. So just coming into this area, I'm just showing you on a personal tax side of things, just because it gives you a bit more information as to what is going to be sent over to the tax return. So you can see here that you have got the different boxes that it will populate within the tax return, within the self-employment pages, and the balances which will then go through to the tax return. Now, if you were wondering exactly which nominal codes were involved in these balances, you can just click within the name area here and copy that. So this is a formula that you will see throughout the financial statements as well, particularly only when you go into the sort of draft mode of a particular schedule. But you can search for these name ranges. So you can right click, copy on any of these name ranges. I'll do one with some information within it. And then so you can then search it within this range content section. Now within here, you can then just select paste, and that will then search for that particular name range. So you can see here that sales of goods code is the one being used. So if you did want to see exactly which nominal codes were being used in certain ranges, then that is a good place to do it. Now, just to touch on where else you might find the name range. So just as an example, you can double click into a lot of the schedules, and most of the figures will have name ranges attached to them within certain cells. So again, that's that total revenue name range within that formula there. And of course, you've got a different one for the admin expenses here. So just as an example, and you will find this name range button at the top as well. So if you were to need to search it, a lot of the areas where you can find them, that will then give you a list of all of the nominal codes involved in the admin expense area. So it's quite helpful if you were to want to populate a particular cell on a particular schedule and you weren't exactly sure where to post it to. It would be a case of looking in that cell, looking within the formula, copying it, searching for the name range. So just an example, that interest payable and similar expenses, you would have to post it within one of these codes in order to populate that cell. So it's just a good tip to kind of work your way back from a particular schedule and get something in a particular cell if you were to want to post it in there. Cool. So just moving on to the corporation tax side of things. So just going to briefly touch on corporation tax and the journal that gets sent back into the accounts from the tax return. So I'm just going to select update tax here. I'm not going to mark it as draft, and then I'm going to send over that information back into the corporation tax return. Yeah, I do. Great. So to go into that client, I'm just going to go into define clients, and actually I can just go in via the home page. Just got the open client option up here, and then within this tax return section, so just bear with a second whilst that opens up corporation tax. So at the moment, there's no information in this particular tax return. So what I'm going to do is just send it over via the tax link, similar to how we've done it on the personal tax side of things. So you can see in here what it's going to populate the figures with, and just kind of summarising as well that, you know, these are the name ranges that you could search if you were to want to find out what was included within those codes. So it just lets us know that we've got accounts production information to import. So I'm just going to select this option at the bottom. Alternatively, you could select the update from accounts in the top area as well. So we're just going to select this accounts production information has changed. That will then import the accounts production information. Just give that a little second. So that's now imported that side of things. So to send the tax journal back into the accounts, so say, you know, you've imported your accounts information, you've done any you know, entries within corporation tax that you may have needed to do. You've just got this tax journal area within corporation tax, and so you can just click within the number area here, select the accounting period that you then want to post back the tax journal into, and it will essentially populate and create that journal for you. Now it's important that you select post as advisor journal as well, just so that then it's kind of tracked within the advisor journal section area as well. So just going to select post and just give that a little second, and then we'll go and have a look at it in the account side of things. Great. So if we then look in our view advisor journal section, in the posted section, you can then see that that corporation tax journal has come through. So it's just saved you a manual journal on your own, doing it by yourself, and also, you know, prevents the risk of error essentially from the corporation tax return. Now, if you were to have changed your corporation tax liability, it will then post back the difference as well. So you can have multiple journals between corporation tax and accounts production. Great. So we've still got quite a bit of time. So I'm just going to touch on how you would get some formulae within a particular paragraph. So we're just going to come in here, and I'm just going to make sure we haven't got our section 1A on. And so I'm just going to look into a turnover note. So just coming into the revenue note here. And so to kind of enter, and I've actually already entered it into there. So I'm just going to clear that out. And so what I'm going to do is just select edit in this section, and bear with me a second. So what I'm showing you is essentially the ability to use formulae to link to the accounts and populate certain notes. So at the moment, I just want to populate this particular note with some information. So this is kind of a formulae that I have essentially created earlier. I won't type it out because it could take us a while, but you can see here. So, and I'll just talk you through what this means. So obviously you've got the company generated turnover, and then you can see that name range that we kind of looked at earlier, the total revenue name range, and then at certain dates. Now you can also use another name range, which is the profit before tax, and that could be used as well. And so you've got certain dates referencing in here as well. And there is a formulae document that, you know, is available, so we can maybe distribute that after the webinar. To use within these paragraph areas as well. So if I select OK on that, you can see then it will then populate and comes up with the figures that have been drawn from the accounts essentially. So, you know, you do have various other options when it comes to the formulae. So you can reference notes and pages, and various other things within the paragraph section as well. So yeah, that is pretty much me finished with regards to the various hints and tips. So if we just have a quick recap on what I've talked about. So first of all, we had the homepage area. So if we just click on the homepage, so you've got your job summary area and how you would go about getting that on your screen via the customize area. We've also, within Accounts Production, we looked at the import section, and so how you would set up your CSV file using the concatenate formula to include the external codes within the description column, and the various options when it comes to the import of a CSV file. We then looked at advisor journals and how that is best practice and pretty much the only thing that you should be using with regards to posting journals, unless it is a previous year or prior year adjustment. So that was the advisor journal side of things. We also touched on the stat database area, size and the audit, and how it will indicate what size and the company should be and whether or not there is an audit report required. The P&L descriptions as well, so without having to localize the page, you can go into that section within the exceptional lines, I think it's called, within the profit and loss area. So that's always good to not have to localize certain pages if you do want a different description. On the financial statements, we looked at the exception report as well. So that's a really good one to just run your eye over prior to start looking at the different pages within the accounts. The finalise area we looked at as well. So if you did want to lock down your accounts and prevent any further amendments, you've got that on the homepage section here. So you can see that up here. We looked at sending the information and name ranges within the tax link side of things. So that's a good tool if you were to want to know exactly which normal codes then populate certain boxes on the tax return. And then we looked at the corporation tax advisor journal that's sent back from corporation tax. And then finally, we looked at the turnover note formulae that is just an example of the different formulae that you can have within paragraphs. So I hope you found that quite useful, and feel free to start with any questions.
Yes, what I neglected to mention to all of you is that we've actually got one of our professional services consultants in the background as well, Libby Scott, and she's been answering a couple of your questions already. But Libby, are there any that stood out to you in the Q&A that you want to touch on?
Hi there, everybody. There's a few that have come up. Ones where I'm thinking, need a bit more information on that, but there's some easy ones. So what I'm going to do is ask Doug to continue to share, and we'll go through some of those. So a very easy one is just about prior year adjustments journals. So Vicky's asked, can we go through those? So with the prior year adjustment journal, we have the functionality within journals, and the journal type is restatement. So you can see there you've got journal, opening balance, restatement and reversing. And as Doug said, we don't normally use this screen. If we're importing a TB, we then go to advisor journals. But if we were building a TB, we might use this. But also if we are restating the comparative columns figures in this year's accounts, we would use a restatement journal. So you'll just enter the journal as usual, but ensure the type is restatement. And then the figures that change will be those figures in the comparative column. So then how do we get the as restated? We go to the statutory database. So we've, obviously I haven't asked Doug to enter a journal, but you would have chosen restatement, you would have put your journal entry through on that screen. Then you go to the profit and loss account folder in the statutory database. You come down to prior year adjustments, see prior period adjustments, and then you would say yes. Yeah, and it opens up a whole other area. So the first little trigger underneath there says hide message on income statement. So you got that option, but then you have a folder, and Doug's opened the folder, and you can see, and we're not going to go through all of these bits because you can see yourself, but you can see that you've got tables for analysis. You might just want to put a little bit of free format text in there just to talk about the prior period adjustment. But just by saying yes, will give you those words as restated, and then you may want to do further analysis depending on how complex those prior period adjustments were. It might have affected, a great deal of the figures in the accounts, or it may have just affected one thing. So it might be cosmetic, or it might be a standard change where you're making lots of changes. So hopefully that has answered that question. So thank you for that. Now, going back, I'm just going to sort of go back on the questions. One of the questions was, how do I choose FRS 105 or 102 in CCH? So I answered that immediately, and I said, well, what you do that on the client setup. So then the question came back again, what happens if it's been set up incorrectly? So unfortunately, you can't just switch it, because you know that with our 102 database, it is huge, and the 105 database is tiny in comparison, so we can't just switch between the two. However, all is not lost, so you wouldn't want to just delete the accounting period and then start from scratch. What I suggest you do is you go to the export screen. So Doug's going to take us to export. Now, instead of just the trial balance, you can export 1 year's worth of transactions. So with a trial balance, we can export up to 5 years in one go, and that's fine. But you may wish for that current year, for example, I don't know how many years you've got in this 105, but let's just say you've done a lot of work on in 102 and it should have been 105, or vice versa, and you want to see those transactions, you can export 1 year's worth of transactions. So you can see Doug's chosen export type transactions, then he's chosen transaction listing. Then you would save it to, you choose the path that you save it. I'm not going to make him do it, but you choose the path that you save it to. And what's the important thing is you click the export button, but you can see on the screen. So then you would have to, and again, this may be permission based. You may not have the permission to delete that accounting period, but from the little red roof home screen, you can see it says delete current period. Obviously, Doug's not going to do that now, but you would delete that period, and then you would set it up again, choosing 105 or 102, depending which way you were going. And then you would be able to import those transactions. But remember, you can only import 1 year's worth of transactions at a time. So let's say you'd taken on this job as a new job, but you had more than 1 year that you wanted to import, and for, let's say you had 3 years. So for the, not the current, but the 2 priors, you just wanted the TB. What I'd say is set it up, import those 2 years of TBs, then roll forward, do the year end, and then import that 1 year worth of transactions. That would be the easiest way. So that's if it were by mistake, that's what you would do. If you were swapping, so if the company was rising to 102 or falling to 105, as it were, you can do that through the year end wizard. So that would be that. Okay, let me just see. Right. So there's 2 places where the questions are, and I sort of wrote them in my notebook, but it's easier just to see here. Right. So, okay. We've got here about the tax journal. It says, I cannot see where you post the tax journal back to accounts. Can you just go back to corporation tax a moment, Doug?
Yep, sure.
Right, so you've got that tax journal, so that's there in the software. You click it where Doug clicked into that number 1. If you just click into it again, just so we can see number 2, and just choose, so you choose your period, so just go for the latest accounting period. Then here, what I would always recommend, can you see it says post as advisor journal? Always tick that box. Hopefully we'll get that enhanced, and so it will be ticked automatically. But if you post it as an advisor journal, then if you need to make an edit or anything, it's much easier to do so. So you would, obviously there's no figures to post now, because Doug's posted it once already, and if we'd changed the accounts and we'd sort of updated the tax, then the difference would need to be posted back, but that would be there. So then it would appear in Accounts Production on the Advisor Journal screen. So you would go to View Advisor Journals, and you can see here the one that Doug posted earlier. And then, you know, if it needed to be unposted or edited for whatever reason, you can do that. But you wouldn't post back here to corporation tax. It doesn't work like that. It's from corporation tax to Accounts Production, and it's the only thing that comes from corporation tax to Accounts Production. Normally it's Accounts Production to corporation tax. So I hope that's answered that. If you hadn't ticked the Advisor Journal box, it would be within the View Transactions screen. Now, while we're here with Advisor Journals, another question was, can we please have another look at the Adjusting Journals report? Well, the question was, can we look at the profit rec? So if we go to the Adjusting Journals report, now on this, sorry, I need to, I've got all these chat boxes open. On this, we see the results per the draft account. So that this is why if we're importing a TB, what we don't want to do then is enter journals, because if we enter journal, when I say enter journals, through the journal input as opposed to the advisor journal input, because if we do, it will change that figure, that 613327 figure, and we don't want to do that because we want to be able to import our TB. We know what the figure is, and then we look here and we go, oh, right, okay, tick, I can see that. And then Doug not imported, I beg your pardon, he input an advisor journal. And so we can see that we actually had £5,000 more of sales. So that increase, well, no, then we took out a load of tax. Isn't that always the way? But if he hadn't put that tax in, that would have increased our profit. But then obviously it's been reduced because of that advisor journal. So we can see the profit rec there. If you input through the journal screen, you won't get that. You won't see this here. So hopefully that has answered that question. There are, how are we doing for time, Steph? Because there are some other questions.
Yeah, I think we're still good to answer some more if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, all right. Right, so it said, can you show how to increase column widths in notes? Now, that's probably a bit more complicated in terms of, it depends whether you've got the permission to make an edit in a format. But if you go into a note, it depends on the note. So that's why I'm saying it's a bit more complicated. What we don't want to do is just start making columns wider, smaller, because depending on the note, you might end up with it not fitting on the page. This note has something called flex column, which it's a really good command, because if we do make other things wider or smaller, that column is going to flex accordingly to make sure things still fit on the page. So you saw Doug did a right click and he went to format and column width. So you can do it that way. But there's probably a little bit more to it than just saying do this or do that. It depends. I'm getting a little thumbs up, thank you. It just depends which note, what the commands are in that note, because not all of them have that column flex in there. Okay. Okay, so that's the column widths. Can you advise how to create additional account codes? Okay, so in the chart of accounts, now again, this can be more complicated as well. So it's easy to create a code in the chart of accounts. You've got a row at the top. You're going to have gaps. I know you're talking about record impairment of investment in subsidiaries, etc. But is that going to be a are you talking about that in the P&L? Are you talking about in the balance sheet? Without knowing more. But let's just say you wanted to include a code somewhere. You would just input the code here. There are gaps. You can see that just on Doug's screen. I know I'm just looking at revenue, but you can see it starts 0010, and then there's a gap until the next code, which is 0020. So you could have 0011, 12, 13, 14, and so on. So what I would do, I would look at the page where I want that figure to come out. I would, let's go to the financial statements, for example. And I don't know if I'm sort of answering in terms of, exactly what you want. But if we, where would it be? I don't know. It might be that you're adding additional information into a note, or it might be that you want to see something within a note. But I would double click into whichever note or page. Let's go to operating profit, for example. Let's go to the operating profit. Let's double click into that, put the draft on. Yeah, and you can see you've got all these items here. Now, every item here, where you have figures or you don't have figures coming through, you have a name range. I know this isn't to do with the subsidiaries, but let's say it's that'll do. It's just talking about the audit, but that's fine. So you've got a named range, AUD fees co. So I would look up that name range and see the codes that fall into that name range, and you do that through going. Doug's doing it. He's gone to the first magnifying glass up on the top there. Look up the name range and see what's in there. That's probably not a brilliant one because it's only got one code in there. But if we picked, I don't know, change it to TOTREV, for example, total revenue. So this logic is the same no matter what it is. You will see the range. So in this one, you can see that it's a range. So the example I gave before that was that you had gaps, so you could create 0011, 12, etc. So you know where it's going to fall. Now your question was a bit more specific, and I can't really answer it here and now, but hopefully I've given you enough to be going on with to be able to see. So you can go and see, so you know where you want it to be. You can look up the name range and you can add the code in accordingly. We have quite a lot of questions, and we've got, hold on, let me go to the Q&A because we're trying to get people to go through Q&A. So one of the questions in Q&A, it was asking about when printing financial statements, is there a way to generate the document name automatically? And that again, I can't answer off the top of my head. It probably takes a bit more thinking about. I've written it down. It's saying anonymous attendee. If you can give me your name, I can have a look at that and get back to you on that. It's there's no button, as it were. Okay, so what that one is, you're talking about purely when you're printing. Okay. Next one down is from AD. Can headings be changed on master level? Makes no sense to show cost of raw materials for direct costs only by a service provider. So if you are a service provider and you're purely doing accounts for a service provider, then yes, of course you can change it at the master level. You can change it on the format at the master level through the format designer. If you have multiple clients and some are changing and some are not, then no, absolutely you would do it at the client level. Yes, is the answer to that. Can you show us how to copy a format from another client when we've done a lot of localized formatting? So that's Foes there. So with that, you go to your financial statements. Sorry, I've got to move so I can see. You just single click on the format. Oh, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Doug's doing it. Yeah. So it says add format. It says from another client. Yes, from another client. You choose your client. Yeah, just choose your client, and then choose the accounting period for that client, and then you saying, oh, it's in the full accounts, and which one is it? And you choose it. You click OK. You bring it in, and it will bring it in. You can see right down the bottom there. Now, what it's done on Doug's example, it's brought it in. It's local because it's local to this collection. But Doug, could I ask you, sorry, can I ask you to just go to Accounts Production, back to where you were? Could you right click and show the field chooser in here? It's right down the bottom there. And then can you bring the code column and just pop it to the left of local up the top there on the that's it, perfect. Right, now can you see you've got two that say page 6 IS? So he's brought in a P&L account and there's the normal P&L account. We must not have that situation where we have two pages that are saying, can you see that Doug's page has gone a bit, it's thrown a little hissy fit over on the right? I think that's a technical term, isn't it? It's showing all formulas. And that is because we have two pages with the same code. So the code must be unique. So if you just double click into there, you go to the page setup, just put an A after the IS or a 1 and then click OK, save and close. Yep. And now you can see it's gone back to normal. Okay, so the question was, can you show us how to bring a localized page in from another client? We've done that, but also the dangers of, and you saw that on that page because the code wasn't unique. So if you're not displaying the code column on your collection, personally I would. Okay. Okay, right, back to Q&A. Not going to get through all of them, sorry. But what else did we have? We've done the profit rec report. I talked about that. Can headings be changed at master level? Talked about that one. Mentioned the CT. Right, let's go back to here. What's the difference between posting journals using the journal option and in the advisor journal option? So what I was saying there was, if you've imported something, if you've imported a TB, using the advisor journal option, it doesn't, when you're looking at the adjusting report, you can see the TB figure that you imported, you know, your profit. So the profit reconciliation, you get this profit reconciliation, and then you see the adjusting items that you've put through. If you use journals, it just goes in as part of the TB, so you kind of lose that nicety of having imported and being able to reconcile. Also, with the advisor journals, you're able to edit them, you're able to unpost them, you're able to, you know, so if, you know, best will in the world, we've all done it, haven't we? Posted our debits as credits and vice versa. You can just go in and edit it and through the advisor journal screen. So it's a much more controlled way, gives you flexibility. Okay, so that is that. Why does it take so long for accounts to be accepted by Companies House except for group accounts? You'd have to ask Companies House or log it with support. I'm sorry, I can't answer that. What's the best way to sort out a note that's been split over 2 pages? Right, if that happens, go into the note and put a page break right at the top, okay? And also log it with support, please. Okay, if that ever happens. Yeah, so where Doug's saying there, if you click into, you know, click into that, you get a little brown dot. Yeah, and that's the page break. If you do that, write in the grey area what you've done. Over at the grey area does not print. So over on the grey area, you'd write, inserted a page break on row 1 because of XYZ. Put your initials and the date you did it. Save and close. The page is now local. And also log it with support that that's happened. Okay. Can you show how the profit rec works? So we have, you just need to go back to the, sorry, we're running out of time. You just need to go back to the adjusting journal report and you should be able to see that. Quarterly, monthly management accounts. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. You can, using dimensions. There are some quarterly and monthly templates set up in the management collection. Can we add a variance column to the TB? It depends. If it's all done in ranges, there is a command. Again, have a look on user docs at the formula. If you're using range def, range code, there's something called range diff, DIF, and that will show the movement. So you'll be able to do that. I think we're running out of time. We've run out of time. Anything like saying somewhere the financial statements do not print the amounts correctly, the amounts are split. Could you log it with support? Anything where you're saying this doesn't seem to work for my firm, or anything like that, log it with support. In terms of adding a logo to the front cover, yeah, absolutely you can. You do have a look on user docs, have a look at images. So it's user docs, accounts production, maintenance area, images, and it tells you about that, and you put the command through, you create a theme and put the command through themes. Okay. I think I've spoken as quickly as I can. Okay.
There's a lot of questions there, but I just wanted to thank Doug and Libby for providing that overview. Hopefully you've got some good hints and tips there to help optimize how you're using accounts production. There's a lot of resources available, as Libby's already mentioned. So if you are struggling with the software, obviously please contact support. But if you're interested in looking into, ways of, further optimizing your use of the software, there's user docs, there's e-learning, there's so much available to you. And as part of our follow-up comms to you, we'll send you the links to where those are. If you've got something a bit more complex that needs more of a bespoke session, then it would probably be a good idea for you to look into some consultancy sessions. But again, we'll point you in the direction of where you need to go for those bits. So sorry we haven't been able to answer all the questions that we've got. Thank you very much for submitting them. And I guess all that's left to say is you are going to get the recording. It will be tomorrow with that follow-up email. But thank you very much to Doug and Libby for their time, giving you this freebie best practice session. So we appreciate that. Thank you very much. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye,
Thanks, everyone. Cheers, bye.